My dad used my college fund to bail out my bully cousin. Then said family comes first as I packed for community college. My name is Cassandra, but everyone calls me Cass. I'm 29 now, but this all started over a decade ago when I was 17 and still believed in the things my dad told me. I grew up in Poughkeepsie, New York, in a quiet, working-class neighborhood. Our house was small, a plain one-story with faded blue siding and a crooked mailbox that leaned like it was tired of standing. It wasn't much, but it was home. My dad, Walter, worked in construction. He was the kind of guy who never took a sick day, kept his hands cracked and dry from years of drywall and heavy lifting, and didn't say more than what was necessary. He could be funny in this dry, sarcastic way when he wanted to be, but mostly he was serious. He had this aura about him like emotions were something he'd heard of once but never really trusted. My older brother, Sean, was 5 years ahead of me and moved out the day after his high school graduation. He went into the military and rarely came back except for holidays. We didn't talk much. Never had. But there was a kind of quiet understanding between us. We were both trying to get out of that house, just in different ways. My mom, Eloise, left when I was 8. She and Dad used to fight constantly, fights that started quiet and ended with broken dishes or car doors slamming at 2 a.m. One day, she just packed up and left. I remember staring at the back of her Subaru as it pulled out of the driveway. No big goodbye. No drama. Just gone. Dad told me later she was selfish and not cut out for responsibility. I was too young to understand then, but I remember feeling like I had to pick up where she left off. I became the quiet one, the helpful one, the invisible one who kept the peace. I made my own lunches, did my own laundry by 10, and stopped asking for things. By the time I hit high school, my whole life revolved around one thing: college. It was my golden ticket. My way out. I studied constantly. I joined the debate team, volunteered at the library, even tutored freshmen in math. I did everything I could to keep my transcript shiny. And I had a college fund. My dad opened a 529 plan when I was little. He didn't talk about it much, but every year I'd see that envelope in the mail. He'd open it, skim it, toss it on the counter without comment. But I knew it was for me. It was my safety net, my security. I clung to it like a promise. Then there was Zachary. Zachary is my cousin, my dad's sister Rena's only kid. I hated him. I know that sounds harsh, but even saying it now doesn't feel strong enough. He was cruel in a way that made you feel crazy for reacting. When we were little, he pushed me down the stairs at our grandma's house and told everyone I tripped. When I was 12, he made up this stupid nickname, Cass the Trash, and it stuck like gum on a shoe. He said it every Christmas, every barbecue, every time we saw them. I cried once and my dad told me, ignore him. He's just teasing. That was the moment I learned my feelings didn't matter. Not in this family. Zachary never changed. He was popular for all the wrong reasons in high school, reckless, arrogant, always surrounded by kids who seemed afraid to cross him. He got caught vaping in the locker room, slashed a kid's tires after a fight, even got suspended once for shoving a teacher. But somehow, Aunt Rena always found a way to excuse him. He's just misunderstood, she'd say. He's got a lot of pressure on him. The worst part? My dad always nodded along. I focused on my studies. My senior year, I got accepted into Boston University, my dream school. I remember when I got the acceptance email. I screamed. Cried. Jumped up and down. It was one of the happiest moments of my life. I ran to tell my dad. He was sitting in the living room watching some documentary about World War II, and when I told him, he smiled and nodded like I'd just told him I got a B on a test. That's good, he said. We'll figure it out. Those words meant everything to me. I believed him. Then, 2 weeks later, Zachary got arrested. It was a Friday night. I was upstairs finishing a paper when I heard my dad's phone ring. His voice changed the second he answered, lower, more serious. I heard Aunt Rena crying through the receiver even from the stairs. Zachary and one of his buddies had broken into a liquor store. The alarm went off, the police came, and he was caught red-handed trying to stuff bottles into a duffel bag. They charged him with second-degree burglary. It was serious. Felony serious. Aunt Rena was sobbing. I don't know what to do, Walter. They're asking $30,000 for bail. I only have 5. Please, you're the only one I can ask. There was this long pause. Then I heard my father say, I'll take care of it. At first, I thought, no, I hoped he meant he'd loan her some money, or co-sign, or help her talk to a lawyer. Something temporary. Something responsible. But the next week, the 529 statement arrived. This time, the envelope wasn't left out. It was gone. I checked the mail every day like a paranoid detective. On day 3, I finally saw it, crumpled in the trash under a Chinese takeout container. I pulled it out. It was already open. The balance was 0. I stood in the kitchen staring at the paper until the ink blurred from the tears in my eyes. One night, I confronted him. I tried to stay calm. Did you use the college fund? I asked. My voice was barely above a whisper. He didn't even pause what he was doing, just kept scraping leftovers into the trash. Things changed, he said. What does that mean? It means Zach needed help. And family comes first. My legs felt like they were going to give out. You used my college money to bail out Zachary? He looked at me then. Not with guilt. Not even with regret. Just this tired sort of irritation. He's your cousin. He made a mistake. He's still young. We're family. We help each other. I stared at him, waiting for him to say more. Apologize. Offer some kind of alternative. But that was it. The next morning, I declined my admission to BU. I enrolled at Dutchess Community College instead, using financial aid and what little savings I had from tutoring. I got a job as a barista at a 24-hour diner off Route 9 and started waking up at 5 a.m. to take the bus across town. I didn't speak to my dad unless I had to. 2 weeks later, he invited Zachary over for dinner. I'll never forget how Zach sauntered in like he owned the place, all smug and relaxed like getting arrested was some joke. Cast the trash, he grinned. Heard you're going local now. Guess we both had to downgrade this year. I looked at my dad, expecting him to say something. Anything. He just kept eating his dinner. That was the night I packed a duffel and left. I crashed at my friend Kelsey's place for the first few weeks. Her parents were kind enough not to ask too many questions, though I could feel her mom watching me carefully whenever I came into the kitchen in the morning with swollen eyes and the same hoodie for the 3rd day in a row. I told them it was temporary, but deep down, I already knew I wasn't going back. I started staying at the college library between classes, mostly because it was quiet, and partially because I didn't want to go back to an unfamiliar house and feel like a burden. I took every tutoring shift I could, worked extra hours at the diner, and somehow managed to keep my grades up. It was like living in survival mode. Every day was about getting through the next assignment, the next paycheck, the next shift. There was this day in early October, the kind that feels like the air is made of smoke and wet leaves, where everything just collapsed. I was on the 6:20 a.m. bus, and I'd fallen asleep holding my bio textbook. The driver had to wake me up at my stop. I remember stumbling off, walking into my 8 a.m. lab, and realizing I had forgotten my entire project at Kelsey's house. I just sat there, staring at the blank lab table, feeling this hot rush of shame and helplessness. When the class ended, I walked to the library, sat down in the furthest back corner, and cried into my arms for a solid hour. No sound, just heaving, trembling sobs that left my whole body aching. I felt so alone. Not just physically, but emotionally, like I'd been erased from the world I was supposed to be a part of. And the worst part? I still missed him. My dad. I missed hearing his boots on the porch, the way he'd bring home leftover donuts from job sites, even the way he'd grumble about politics while cooking breakfast. That's the insidious thing about this kind of betrayal. You don't just grieve the betrayal, you grieve the person you thought they were. Sean came back around Thanksgiving. I hadn't told him everything, just bits and pieces through texts. He'd been stationed in Louisiana for a year and didn't really ask questions unless he sensed you wanted him to. But the minute he walked into the kitchen at Kelsey's and saw me standing there in my apron, getting ready to head to the diner for the evening shift, he knew something was off. We sat outside in his car that night, parked under a streetlight that flickered like it was tired too. I told him everything. About the fund. The bail. The dinner with Zach. He didn't say anything for a while. Just looked out the windshield and muttered, Jesus Christ. Sean never had the best relationship with Dad either. They'd butted heads over everything: grades, girls, politics, drinking. But I think even he had expected more when it came to me. "I should have taken you with me," he said after a while. "I should have seen it sooner." "It's not your fault," I said. He looked over at me, and for the first time since we were kids, his voice softened. "You're not going back there, Cass. Not ever. Not even to visit." And I didn't. Not for the holidays. Not for my birthday. Not when I made Dean's List 2 semesters in a row. I blocked Dad's number and told Kelsey's parents they could stop calling me temporary. I got a second-hand desk from Goodwill and crammed it into the corner of her basement, where I started building a new version of myself, one without apology. Meanwhile, I heard things. Through the family grapevine, mostly. Zachary's case went to trial. His lawyer tried to plead it down to a misdemeanor, but the store owner testified, and the judge wasn't buying the whole youthful mistake routine. He got sentenced to 18 months. Spent just over a year in Ulster County Jail. Aunt Rena tried to throw a fundraiser. Hardly anyone came. The pictures ended up on Facebook, and I couldn't help but feel a bitter satisfaction watching her stand behind a sad folding table of cupcakes and a glittery "Justice for Zachary" poster. I didn't feel bad. Not even a little. I started writing scholarship essays like my life depended on it. Because, in a way, it did. Every little check, $500 here, $300 there, chipped away at what felt like an impossible mountain. I was determined to transfer after my 2 years were up, even if it killed me. One day, out of the blue, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten, in my dad's all-caps, barely legible scrawl. No return address. "Cass, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I made a mistake. I thought I was helping. I didn't mean to hurt you. I hope you're doing well. I'm proud of you. Always have been. Dad." That was it. No apology. No acknowledgement of what he actually did. Just a half-hearted mistake and a vague sentiment that felt more like an obligation than a confession. I never wrote back. I kept going. Every hard day, every 10-hour diner shift, every cram session at the library pushed me forward. I transferred after 2 years to a private college in Vermont that offered me a huge financial aid package. I finished my degree in biology there, summa cum laude. Sean came to my graduation. So did Kelsey and her mom, who cried the whole time like I was her own daughter. My dad wasn't there. He didn't ask to come. Didn't send flowers. Just another generic card a week later, with a crisp $50 inside and a post-it note that said, "Heard you did good. Congrats." I stared at it for a long time before ripping it in half and tossing it in the bin. And yet, even now, sometimes I wonder if he ever realized the cost of what he did. Not in dollars, but in what it took from me. What it killed in me. Because the money, that was just paper. The real damage was him making it clear, I wasn't the priority. I wasn't the child worth protecting. I was expendable for the sake of family. And no amount of cards, no vague apologies, no birthday texts can undo that. I didn't plan on revenge. I didn't spend nights crafting schemes or daydreaming about grand gestures that would make my dad or Zachary fall to their knees in regret. I was too busy surviving. But life has a funny way of giving you the perfect opportunity when you're not even looking for it. It started a couple of years after graduation. I had moved to Concord, New Hampshire, for a research job at a small environmental firm. I was renting a one-bedroom apartment above a bakery, walking distance to the town square, and for the first time in a long time, I had peace. Real peace. I had a job that paid decently, coworkers who respected me, and the freedom to create a life that was entirely mine. No shouting from downstairs. No passive-aggressive silence. No family comes first guilt trips. Then one morning, out of nowhere, I got a message on LinkedIn. It was from Zachary. I stared at the screen for a full minute before opening it. It read, "Hey Cass. Hope you're doing well. I heard you're working in environmental consulting. That's awesome. Look, I'm trying to turn things around. I've been thinking about starting a landscaping business with a green angle, like sustainable stuff. Your background could really help me. Maybe we could meet up? I'd love to pick your brain. No hard feelings. Just trying to build something. Let me know." I don't know what amazed me more, the audacity of him reaching out like we were old college friends, or the fact that he thought I would help him. Still, I didn't delete the message. I sat with it. And the more I thought about it, the more something clicked into place, not anger exactly, but something sharper. Focused. A few days later, I wrote back. Sure. Let's talk. Send me your plan. He replied within an hour with a 5-page business proposal. It was riddled with typos, had no budget, no sourcing plan, no structure. It was just buzzwords like eco-friendly, plant-based pesticides, and green future. But it gave me an idea. I told him I'd be happy to help him refine the proposal and even offered to introduce him to a local sustainability incubator my firm sometimes partnered with. I could tell by his reply that he was eating it up. He replied, "That would be huge. You're the best, Cass. I always knew you'd do big things. Proud of you." I felt sick reading that. But I smiled. Because now I had a plan. I spent the next few weeks coaching him through a pitch deck. Every time he sent me another version, I gave detailed feedback, encouraging him to add more figures, more analysis, and use industry terms he clearly didn't understand. He tried, poorly. Meanwhile, I reached out to the incubator program. Told them a prospective entrepreneur was looking to pitch a startup that was promising, but clearly not ready. Then, I offered to let him pitch his idea at a small meet and greet I helped organize for local startups and green investors. He agreed. Of course he did. The day of the event, Zachary drove 2 hours from Kingston in a beat-up silver Toyota. He showed up in a wrinkled button-down and khakis, looking smug, carrying a half-folded poster board and a USB stick. He didn't recognize half the people in the room, clean-cut professionals, some in suits, others in Patagonia vests. The kinds of people who smile politely while internally grading your vocabulary, your posture, your choice of font. Zachary's pitch lasted 12 painful minutes. He stumbled through slides full of misspellings and stock images of plants, couldn't answer any basic questions about costs or regulations, and at one point said he wanted to plant grass that never dies because it would save people tons of money. It was brutal. Politely brutal. One of the panelists, an older woman with decades in green tech, gave him a slow blink and said, "Have you done any market research outside of Google?" Zachary flushed bright red. By the end of it, the room was silent. Not unkind. Just uninterested. Afterward, he pulled me aside and muttered, "Why didn't you help me more?" I looked at him and said, "I gave you everything you asked for. Maybe you just didn't listen." He left without saying goodbye. A few days later, he sent me another message, "I don't think that was cool, Cass. You could have done more. I was counting on this. You let me fall on my face." I stared at the message for a while before responding. "You didn't fall because of me. You fell because for the first time, you didn't have someone cleaning up your mess for you. You got the same thing I got, Zach. A hard lesson in reality. The difference is, I built from it. You're still trying to shortcut your way to the top." He never replied. A few months later, I ran into Aunt Rena at the local Price Chopper while visiting Kelsey and her family. She looked older than I remembered, thinner somehow. She gave me a half smile. "I heard you're doing well," she said. "I am. Your dad talks about you sometimes. Says he regrets a lot." I nodded. "That's his to carry." She looked like she wanted to say something more. Maybe apologize. Maybe beg for a bridge that would never be rebuilt. But instead, she just said, "Take care of yourself." "I always do," I said, and walked away. Later that year, I got engaged to Lyle, a quiet, kind man who treats my silence with patience and my ambition with awe. When he met Sean for the first time, they sat on my porch for 2 hours talking about diesel engines and hiking trails. It felt like something full circle. We didn't invite Dad to the wedding. He sent a gift. A check for $250 and a note that said, "For the happy couple. I'm sorry for everything. I hope someday we can talk. Love, Dad." I never cashed the check. It sits in a drawer, yellowing slowly. Not because I want to frame it or keep it close, but because it reminds me of a truth I earned through pain, through grit, and through walking away. Sometimes the best revenge isn't a breakdown or a confrontation. Sometimes it's success. Peace. Freedom. It's knowing that the same people who underestimated you, who sacrificed you for their own comfort, now have to watch from the sidelines while you thrive. And no apology can buy their way back in.